My father broke a champagne bottle against the side of my head at my brother's 40th birthday party. The crime wasn't that I refused to give him my $500,000 condo. The crime was that I refused to stay silent while they auctioned off the last piece of my soul in front of a crowd of their closest friends. They thought erasing me from family photos would be enough to make me disappear. They were about to learn that ghosts can haunt you in ways you never see coming. The evening had started with the oppressive perfection unique to my family's gatherings in their corner of leafy, old money Connecticut. I pulled my modest sedan up to the valet, feeling like a sparrow that had wandered into a peacock enclosure. Inside, the air hummed with live jazz and the scent of money, a heady mix of expensive perfume and catered truffle risotto. The celebration for my brother, Julian, was less a birthday party and more a coronation. I moved through the sea of cashmere and diamonds, my simple black dress a silent protest against the glittering backdrop. My mother, Vivian, her smile as sharp and flawless as the diamond necklace at her throat, greeted me with a kiss that never touched my cheek. "Leona, darling, so glad you could make it." Her eyes scanned me from head to toe, a swift, brutal appraisal that found me wanting. My father, Marcus, clapped a hand on my shoulder, his grip just a little too firm. "There she is. Don't be a stranger, kid." I was seated at a table in the back, tucked behind a floral arrangement so large it could have hidden a fugitive. From there, I watched the performance unfold. Toasts were made. Laughter, brittle and loud, echoed off the crystal chandeliers. Julian, the golden son, the future of the family empire, stood beaming, his wife Claire, a perfect porcelain accessory at his side. No one looked my way. I was a ghost at the feast, a familiar spirit they had long since learned to ignore. Then the lights dimmed. A spotlight hit a small stage. Vivian glided to the microphone. "And now," she announced, her voice dripping with manufactured warmth, "a very special tribute from Julian's adoring little sister, Leona." My heart stopped. This wasn't planned. As I walked toward the stage, 100 pairs of eyes following me, a cold dread snaked its way up my spine. Vivian gave me a smile that didn't reach her eyes, a predator's smile. I reached the microphone, my hands clammy. "It's a wonderful night," I began, my voice shaking slightly. "Julian, I just want to say—" "Oh, darling, don't be shy," Vivian interrupted, stepping forward and taking the mic. She turned to the crowd. "Leona has been so thoughtful, wanting to give Julian the perfect gift to start this new decade. She's decided, as a symbol of her love, to gift him her beautiful condo in Boston." The air was sucked out of the room, a collective sharp intake of breath. It wasn't a suggestion, it was a public execution. The condo was my life's work, the one thing I had built for myself, away from their suffocating influence. They were trying to take it, not in private, but here, under the glare of 100 spotlights, where saying no would brand me as selfish, ungrateful, a traitor. I looked at my family, at Julian, who suddenly found the contents of his wineglass fascinating, at my father, who was watching me with a look of smug certainty. They had planned this. This was checkmate. I took a deep breath, leaned into the microphone, and spoke, my voice quiet but clear as a bell. "That's a beautiful thought, Mom. But my gift is in the box I left on the table. The condo is not for sale." A wave of murmurs rippled through the crowd. Vivian's smile faltered just for a second, a crack in the perfect facade. I stepped off the stage, my body trembling, my heart hammering. I had survived. I didn't know the worst was yet to come. I hadn't made it back to my table when Marcus intercepted me by the towering cake. His face was a mask of cold fury. "You just embarrassed this entire family," he hissed, his voice low and venomous. Before I could respond, he snatched a bottle of champagne from a silver bucket. I thought he was going to pour a drink to make a show of normalcy. Instead, he swung it. The sound was a dull, sickening crack, followed by a collective gasp from the few people who were close enough to see. A supernova of white light exploded behind my eyes. I stumbled back, my hand flying to my temple. When I pulled it away, it was slick with blood. The pristine white tablecloth next to me was suddenly blooming with a constellation of red drops. Time seemed to warp. I could see phones being raised, their small red recording lights winking at me like malevolent eyes. I saw Julian look over, his expression not of horror, but of annoyance. My mother, Vivian, simply turned her back. No one moved to help me. No one called my name. The pain was a distant secondary sensation. The primary feeling was a profound, soul-crushing humiliation. I had been assaulted by my own father, in a room full of people, and their only reaction was to record it. I straightened up, my legs shaking, and walked. Not ran. I walked through the parted sea of silent, staring guests, out the grand double doors, and into the cool night air. I didn't look back. I got into my car and drove, the world a blurry smear of streetlights and my own hot tears. At an urgent care clinic 20 minutes later, a nurse with kind, tired eyes stitched the gash above my temple. "Do you want me to call someone for you?" she asked gently. I shook my head. "There's no one to call." When I finally made it back to my Boston condo in the early hours of the morning, I felt a new kind of terror. My spare key, the one I kept in a hidden pocket of my purse, was gone. I tore the bag apart, my hands trembling. It wasn't there. And then I remembered Marcus, a week ago, grabbing my purse by mistake. A notification pinged on my phone. It was from a real estate app. "Your private showing for 114 Beacon Street is confirmed for tomorrow at 2 p.m. My blood ran cold. It all clicked into place. The public ambush, the assault, the stolen key. It was a coordinated attack. They weren't just trying to coerce me. They were actively trying to steal my home. I sat on my floor, the city lights glittering outside my window, and for the first time, I saw my family not as flawed, difficult people, but as enemies, and I knew this was a war I couldn't afford to lose. The next morning, I met with a lawyer named Elias. He was sharp, his eyes missing nothing as I recounted the story, my voice flat and emotionless. I had moved beyond tears. "This is more than a family dispute, Leona," he said, his fingers steepled. "This is a pattern of coercion, assault, and attempted theft. We can fight this." A week later, I received an email from Vivian. "Darling, this has all been a terrible misunderstanding. Please come to the house. Let's talk, just us. Let's fix this." Against Elias's advice, I went. I needed to see it for myself, to hear the lies from their own mouths. I walked into the familiar living room, the scent of fresh-cut lilies thick in the air. Vivian, Marcus, and Julian were there, their faces arranged in expressions of solemn concern, and on the coffee table, nestled between a pot of tea and a plate of cookies, was a manila envelope. "We don't want any more conflict," Marcus began, his voice smooth as silk. "So we had our lawyer draft an agreement. Just to clarify ownership of certain assets for everyone's peace of mind." I picked up the envelope. The document inside was titled Deed Transfer Agreement. I started my phone's voice recorder in my pocket. "You lured me here under the pretense of an apology to have me sign away my home?" I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. Vivian sighed. "Don't be so dramatic, Leona. It's just a building. We're your family." "No," I said, placing the document back on the table. "You're the people who hit me with a bottle when I didn't give you what you wanted." I turned and walked out the door, the recording safely captured. This wasn't a family. It was a criminal enterprise. That evening, Elias called. Leona, I was reviewing your financial history, the documents you sent over. I found something. Do you remember bailing your parents out of foreclosure a decade ago? Vaguely, I said. It was a mess. I signed a lot of papers. Well, Elias said, a hint of steel in his voice, it seems that in their haste, they never had you sign the final transfer of title. According to the state of Connecticut, the house they are living in, the house they have lived in for 10 years, is legally yours. The line went silent as I processed his words. I had given them a lifeline, and they had tried to use it to strangle me. File the eviction notice, Elias, I said, a cold, hard resolve solidifying in my gut. Immediately. We didn't warn them. There were no more tearful phone calls, no dramatic confrontations. Justice, I was learning, is often a quiet, bureaucratic affair. It arrives in a sealed envelope, delivered by a uniformed stranger. The fallout was nuclear. My phone lit up with furious texts from cousins, aunts, and uncles, all calling me a monster, a viper, heartless. They had heard only one side of the story, of course, the side my mother was now expertly peddling. She posted a video online. It was a masterpiece of manipulation, a heavily edited montage of family photos, none of which included me, set to sad piano music. In it, she spoke tearfully about the betrayal of a daughter who had turned on her own family, throwing them out of their home for no reason. The video went viral in our small, gossipy community. Family betrayal started trending. I watched it once, a cold knot tightening in my stomach. For a moment, the old Leona, the one who craved their approval, wanted to scream, to post her own tearful video, to fight fire with fire. But Elias's voice echoed in my head. Emotion is their weapon. The truth is yours. I didn't make a video. I didn't write a long, impassioned post. Instead, I created a simple, password-protected web page. On it, I uploaded everything. The scanned hospital report from the night of the assault. The audio recording of them trying to coerce me into signing the deed transfer. Scanned copies of the wire transfers and loan agreements showing the hundreds of thousands of dollars I had given them over the years. And at the very top, the deed to their house with my name on it, clear as day. I didn't share it publicly. I emailed the link to a handful of people, the key family members who had called me a monster, and a local journalist who had written a syrupy, one-sided article about my family's plight. I didn't add any commentary. The facts spoke for themselves. The truth was a quiet bomb, and I had just lit the fuse. Weeks later, I stood in the empty house. The moving trucks were gone. The echo of my footsteps on the hardwood floors was the only sound. The rooms were bare, stripped of all personality, all history. It didn't feel like a victory. It felt empty, but it was a clean emptiness, a peaceful emptiness. It was the feeling of a slate wiped clean. I walked through the silent halls, my fingers trailing along the dust-free walls. They had been meticulous in their departure. There were no angry notes, no vengeful damage. There was nothing. They had simply vanished, taking all traces of themselves with them. In the kitchen, I opened a drawer out of habit and found a single object left behind. A small, elegant silver key. The key to the Boston condo. My key. The one they had stolen. It sat there, gleaming against the dark wood, a silent admission of guilt, a final, pathetic gesture. I picked it up, its metal cool against my palm. I didn't feel anger or triumph. I felt a profound sense of pity for them. They had gambled everything on my silence, on my fear, on my lifelong habit of putting their needs before my own. They had lost. Back in my condo, the city lights of Boston spread out before me like a carpet of scattered jewels. The sale of the Connecticut house had finalized that morning. I was financially free, untethered from them in every conceivable way. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Claire, Julian's wife. Leona, I know this means little now, but I am sorry. I never knew the extent of it. You deserved a family who cherished you, not one who saw you as an asset. I hope you find peace." I read the message, and for the first time in a long time, I felt a flicker of warmth. Maybe not all bridges needed to be burned. I didn't reply. Not yet. Instead, I walked to my window, looking down at the bustling city below. I thought about the girl who used to shrink herself to fit into the cramped spaces they allowed for her. The girl who thought love was something you had to earn, a prize you won for being quiet and compliant. She was gone. In her place was a woman who understood that peace wasn't a gift others gave you. It was the space you claimed for yourself when you finally stopped asking for permission. I raised my glass of water to my own reflection in the window, a silent toast. It wasn't to victory or to new beginnings. It was to the quiet, unshakable power of standing alone in a home that was truly my own, and knowing with absolute certainty that it was enough, Nguyen.